Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk Video Games. We are here to talk about the Steam Deck and how it basically changed my entire life. I'm going to give you guys a short little story. I'm just going to explain to you guys my entire journey going from console to handhelds to PC. To give you guys some context, I've always been a console gamer. Specifically, PlayStation has always been my main console of choice ever since the start, since PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1 was a magical console for me. I was only 5 years old at the time when I first laid hands on this amazing console, and it wowed me in every way possible. Playing games like Dino Crisis 2, I loved Dino Crisis 2, Crash Bandicoot 2, Tekken 2 as well as one of my favorite fighting games. Not to mention King of Fighters 1999 is my favorite King of Fighters, and Metal Slug. Man, Metal Slug during this generation with PlayStation 1 was an awesome ass game. I love it so much. So during this generation, my brother brought home the PlayStation 1 and that was it for me. I always knew video games as being on a machine that you had to go and play at the arcade. So having a console right in your living room, it was magical to me. This was the first generation where I learned about consoles. The PlayStation 1 was the start of my journey. It solidified what I would become and my interests as a gamer, leading all the way up to when I broke my brother's PlayStation 1. I stepped on the lid. I stayed home from school one day, pretended to be sick so I could play Dino Crisis 2, and I was so excited to play that section where you fight the dinosaurs. It's sort of like a 2D fighter. At the end of the game you unlock it. I was jumping around like little kids do, and I stepped on the PlayStation 1 and broke the lid off. I was so scared for when my brother did get home that day. Continuing from that, the PlayStation 2, that was also my favorite console during the 6th generation of consoles with the Nintendo GameCube and the original Xbox. I didn't play the original Xbox as much. The GameCube I loved as well. That was an awesome console with those little discs. They're just so dang cute. But on the PlayStation 2, that was my main console of choice. I remember my brother bringing the PlayStation 2 home, that big fat version. First game I played on the PlayStation 2 was Devil May Cry 2. I know, not the best Devil May Cry, but that was my first experience into what a PlayStation 2 game could be. And we bought that game super cheap, I'm guessing because people did not love it. And we loved it. You know, back then there was no Twitter. There was online, but just not the way that it is now. So we played the entirety of Devil May Cry 2, loved it because we had no idea it was supposed to be a bad game. But that's how it was back then. You know, you just played games because you wanted to play games and you enjoyed them no matter how bad they were sometimes. And with other games like God of War, the rest of the Devil May Crys, Jak and Daxter, the Dragon Ball Z games, the Budokai 1 through 3, the Budokai Tenkaichi, which are some of my favorites, especially Tenkaichi 2, even Sagas I loved. I loved the hell out of the PlayStation 2. Going on to the PlayStation 3 generation, which is the 7th generation of consoles with the Xbox 360 and Nintendo Wii. The PlayStation 3 was my mainstay. That was my console. I loved that generation so much, even though that was Sony's darkest generation because of the famous $599. At this point with the PlayStation 3, I was fully invested in the PlayStation 3, buying games online on PlayStation Network and solidifying where I would purchase my digital games from then on out. Even though PlayStation 3 digital purchases sort of did not carry over to PlayStation 4. And also getting trophies in video games. I love getting trophies. I have around 89 platinums so far, and getting some of those platinums was very fun for me. The PlayStation 3 had a lot of freaking amazing games. We had a lot of trilogies on PlayStation 3. We had the Uncharted trilogy. If you guys have not played Uncharted are some of the best action adventure third-person shooter games. They're awesome. We had the Killzone trilogy, which are very fun first-person shooters. Also, the other first-person shooter trilogy, the Resistance games, which are some of my favorite games of all time. I love Resistance. The infamous duo of games with Infamous 1 and 2. And of course, how could we not mention God of War 3? God of War 3 is my favorite God of War. That game is freaking awesome. And of course, Sony's favorite game nowadays with their 30 re-releases, The Last of Us, my favorite game of all time. It's a masterpiece. I love The Last of Us. It released in 2013 alongside GTA 5 that year. On the third party side, we had the Dead Space trilogy, the Crysis games. Some of the best Call of Duties came out during this generation with Black Ops 2, Battlefield 3 and 4, Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2, the best Assassin's Creed games. The best of everything came out on this console during this generation. I love the PlayStation 3, and the PlayStation 3 is and will forever be my favorite console of all time. Continuing on to the PlayStation 4 generation, I love the PlayStation 4 generation, but this was the generation when Sony started to play it safe. At the end of the PlayStation 3 generation, this gained back the lead that Xbox had with that video of the infamous Xbox One announcement, with it only being online and TV, Xbox, Connect, everything about that release, the Xbox One, was a disaster. Sony was sitting pretty this whole generation, playing it safe. They didn't really risk much. They had a lot of releases like God of War 2018, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End is amazing, Lost Legacy as well is great, Bloodborne, Infamous Second Son, Days Gone, and of course, one of my favorite games of all time, The Last of Us Part 2. If you guys don't know, I love The Last of Us. Look at this tattoo, by the way. I got that because of The Last of Us Part 2. I love that game so much. But there was something definitely missing this generation. There was a lack of different types of experiences on PlayStation. You know, since the Resistance and Killzone games were kind of missing. We did have Killzone Shadowfall at the beginning of the PlayStation 4 generation, but a lot of those different genres disappeared during the PlayStation 4 generation. We just got a lot of third-person, over-the-shoulder games for the PlayStation 4. We also did have a lot of third-party amazing games like Doom 2016, Dragon Ball FighterZ. Continuing onto the PlayStation 5 generation with the Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch, of course. This generation, I honestly think, has been the worst generation for PlayStation when it comes to first-party releases. We've only had games like Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This definitely has been Sony's worst generation for me. But for Sony themselves, this has been probably their best generation with how much revenue they've actually made with selling games digitally on PlayStation Network. Of course, the death of physical games is coming soon, so Sony obviously is making more money on every game they sell through PlayStation Network. It is because of this generation that I started to wonder, is there more for me out there? So the PlayStation 5 generation was the first generation where I ventured the most. I explored other consoles more than I usually do. With the Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch, I've had 7 Nintendo Switches, believe it or not, but still, didn't really play them, just had them, and 3 Xbox Series X's. Played a lot of these different consoles during this generation because I was just not satisfied with what PlayStation was giving me. So this was the generation where I finally played all the Halo games and all the Gears of War games. For the first time, I was like, why not? I'm not getting much from PlayStation, so I might as well try these exclusives that I've never played before. With all the Halo games, man, I had a blast with all of these games. It really made me miss the days of Sony throwing their hat in the ring when it comes to trying out the first-person shooter genre with Resistance and Killzone. That was sort of their answer to Halo, but you know, me never playing Halo, I finally played them and I had a blast playing them. My favorite Halo is Halo Reach, and my favorite Gears of War is Gears, the remaster they did on the Xbox One. Even though I had 7 Nintendo Switches, don't ask me why. I really didn't play much of Nintendo Switch. I sort of just had it there just to have it there, you know, to play Mario Kart and all these other party games basically. So I didn't put too much time on the Switch, but if there's a game I have to call out that I definitely did spend the most time with, that would have to be Super Mario Odyssey. That game was amazing. I love Super Mario Odyssey. Still, I had not found what I was looking for. Microsoft was waning when it came to the Xbox Series X, so I didn't want to invest too much time into a device that might one day be obsolete. And at that point in time, the Nintendo Switch was very underpowered that it wasn't even funny anymore. And let's face it, the PlayStation Portal was never for me. Streaming games just sounds terrible. I don't want to do it. Why would I want to do that when I could just download the game and play it off of the hard drive? In comes the Steam Deck. Released February 25th, 2022. Suddenly, I saw this thing everywhere. Everyone on YouTube was talking about it. The Steam Deck, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, it's a portable handheld device that could run modern games. So my natural thought was, what? How? I was very intrigued by this. So I bought it, and suddenly I saw something I had only dreamed of. A device you could take with you anywhere that could handle not only your small indie games, but can also handle your big AAA games like Elden Ring, Doom Eternal, Crisis, anything you want to throw at this thing, The Last of Us, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it can handle it. I truly thought this was the wildest thing I had ever seen, and I honestly did not have any idea on where purchasing this device would lead me down. A very strange path for me that I really thought I would never take. Why did I think this though? The thing I've always loved about consoles was that you put in a disc or you download the game and voila, it works. This reason alone was why I never wanted to buy a PC. I've heard the horror stories about how you have to update the drivers and something's wrong with this app or that game won't run. Oh, you have to change this and the properties. Sounded like a nightmare. But the Steam Deck definitely changed my mind on everything. Most of your Steam library could run on this thing. Most of the games that you would want to play on this. And if for some reason some of the games wouldn't run on it, you could find a way, you could figure it out, you could look it up, you could go on Reddit, you could figure some way to make these games run. And not to mention the emulation scene on this thing is one of the best communities I've ever seen. So to start with emulation here, I've never really been into emulating games. Mostly because I just had no idea how it worked. I never thought I could figure it out. I thought I was too dumb to figure it out. As a console gamer, I could really never wrap my mind around it. But emulating on the Steam Deck was so easy to figure out with EmuDeck. Of course, I had to follow a guide that I got from YouTube to actually emulate this thing because I didn't want to mess something up. You could play so many things on here. Sega Genesis, NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Color, PSP, PlayStation 2, even PS3 I've heard, although I have not dabbled in that yet. And these games would look amazing. There's so many little cheats you could do to bump up the resolution or have a higher frame rate. The Steam Deck could really be your all-in-one device, not to mention the storefront of Steam games with thousands of games available to purchase, old and new. My library of Steam games is already over 1,000 games. So overall, I was very satisfied with the Steam Deck. But here's the thing. While I love gaming handhelds and playing on a portable device like the PSP and PS Vita and now the Steam Deck, I've always preferred playing on a big screen. That's why I gravitated towards consoles. Playing with a controller in my hand, there's really nothing like it. So at this point in my journey, I figured after the Steam Deck, I would just go back to consoles. But something sort of ticked in my head, and I started looking into getting a more powerful 16-inch gaming laptop. To be specific, the HP Omen Transcend 16. So I ordered it, and again, I started tinkering with it, figuring out all its quirks, especially with emulation on the laptop. Now being able to play more modern stuff like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 through our PCS3 and Xenia Canary. The more I was digging deeper into PC, the more I was being dragged away from consoles. I really was enjoying my experience on the laptop, and the more I messed around with the laptop, the more I was learning about emulation. But the other thing I started to notice with this beast of a gaming laptop was that it was outperforming my PlayStation 5. The screen ran at 240 Hz at 1600p, and while it couldn't hit 4K, it definitely was outpacing my PlayStation 5 on the frame rates and even the texture quality and overall the quality of how the game looked. While the Series X and the PlayStation 5 at that time were struggling to hit 60 frames per second, a lot of games were taking graphical and performance hits and running at 30 frames per second. The laptop was able to do 120 frames no problem. It made me notice a lot of my old PlayStation 4 digital titles that I did have on the PlayStation 5 that I would play. They started to look blurrier to me, which I never noticed before. It opened my eyes to how bad these games were running. They looked very muddy, very washed out, and ran much worse than on the laptop. I found myself not even playing my Nintendo Switch or Series X anymore, and only playing a couple titles on my PlayStation 5 in general. So it was only natural I started to wonder, what would these games look like on an actual dedicated gaming PC with a gaming monitor? So I finally pulled the trigger. I went for a 4090 graphics card gaming PC from NZXT and a 32-inch LG OLED with the 4K 240 Hz screen. These two combined made for an insane power up in graphics from the laptop, and really just made my consoles and anything I had ever played before that seem so weak in comparison to this new setup I had. So I could not unsee it anymore. The differences had gotten bigger, and at this point I was entirely in on the PC ecosystem with Steam. I was now abandoning my PlayStation 5. I would only play really a couple, if maybe even just one game on it. And I really stopped caring about getting trophies on the PlayStation. Honestly, I did not see any of this coming. I always thought PlayStation was really it for me. I thought it was going to be my main platform of choice. And to some point, that's always going to be true. I'm always going to have a special connection to PlayStation. I'm always going to feel that nostalgia whenever I play old PlayStation games, or whenever they announce a new PlayStation. Of course, I'm going to buy it. Most of the PlayStation games will probably come to PC in the future. Also, I always thought I would keep on collecting physical video games, and PlayStation 5 was a huge part of that because some of the best versions are physically on the PlayStation 5, so I would collect my games there. But my mind started to even change on that. I started to think, what is the point in collecting these physical games, right? If there's a better version on PC. I know some versions of games on PC do run worse. It's usually only a couple of games that happens, and usually it gets solved within weeks, if not months. But what is the point of me collecting, let's say, Devil May Cry 4 physical edition for PlayStation 4 compared to playing it on the PC where it runs way better? It's like night and day, I'm telling you. It's insane. So why would I want a physical version that runs worse? So I could play it in the future? Why would I want to play a worse version in the future? I'm pretty sure I'm always going to have that Steam game, and if it ever goes offline, I know there will probably be a way to play it, even though it gets delisted. To me now, it's not really important to have a game physically. It's nice to have it, and I'll always sort of enjoy, you know, the hunt of having a physical game collection and looking for specific games, collecting them, unboxing packages, unboxing new games and that new game smell. But now what I'm really focusing on is, and what the Steam Deck sort of got me closer to, is really just thinking about games as an experience, and what's important is the experience, not collecting that experience. Because what's the point in me having a physical game if I don't like it? And when I did have a lot of these physical games before I got rid of my collection to buy my PC, I wouldn't even play these games. They would just sit there on the shelves all lonely. What's the point of that, really? At the end of the day, it's just plastic and a disc. I know we don't own the digital games because you're basically buying a license, but at the end of the day as well, do you really own that plastic box with that disc? We don't live forever. This life isn't guaranteed for anyone. You can't really take your physical collection with you to your grave. So yeah, the Steam Deck changed my life completely. It changed my mindset. Don't get me wrong, I'll always love my consoles, and when there's a new console release like the Nintendo Switch 2, I'm very much looking forward to that. I will definitely be there and buy these consoles and try them out, but I am now 100% in on a PC. That will forever from here on out be my main platform of choice, and everything that goes along with that. Playing these games on insane graphics settings and having them look better than life itself sometimes. Emulating whatever console or game I want to, and even those games running better than they actually ran on the original hardware. So yeah, Steam Deck, thank you for showing me the real meaning of video games and helping me learn and really come to understand things that 15 years ago I would have never really thought I would have even came close to understanding. I will always prefer to play with a controller though. So another last thank you to the Steam Deck for changing my life, and not only that, it did change the gaming industry. We now have so many handheld PCs out on the market. This device came to me when I felt really lost, and at a time that I was really not liking the direction the video game industry was going. It truly reinvigorated my gaming life, and I will forever be thankful to the Steam Deck for that. But yeah guys, let me know in the comments below if you've ever played a certain console or a certain device that has changed your life in the way that the Steam Deck has changed mine. And let me know your experiences with the Steam Deck hardware, or if you're a PC gamer, a console gamer, let me know in the comments below. What type of gamer are you? Thanks for listening to me talk about the Steam Deck. And I very much am thankful for any viewers out there that are watching my videos. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you subscribing. And until next time, guys, you guys take care and keep on gaming. I'll see you soon.